Welcome to the Kalara BYOD Hub and some more teacher techno training. Today we're going to have a look at one of those things that online learning is such a different way of teaching. Now, a lot of you have exams. Now, how would we do that if you didn't actually have face-to-face or a printed exam? So we're going to actually have a look at how we can actually use the quiz function in Microsoft Forms to actually create an exam that is self-marking with a couple of short answer questions. I'm going to use Microsoft Teams today to show you how you actually link that, but you can also link that with Google Classroom. And if you look at the previous video on polls and quizzes, you can actually do it. But there's one advantage, or there's a couple of advantages to Microsoft Forms. We can do branching content and a couple of other things that you can't with Google Forms. So let's get going. So we're going to start. I've basically logged in to my Office 365 account through my staff portal and clicked on Forms. So I'm going to go to New Quiz. And I'm just going to show you some of the features, and then I've actually got one that's already here. So this one's just my test quiz. I'll just show you some of the features. So straight away, add new. Now you have multiple choice, text, a rating, date, and this arrow here we have ranking, which is really good because I can drag and drop. We can use Likert scales, and we can add sections. So we're going to start from multiple choice. Now straight away I put required, and if you have multiple answers you can also do that. So I'm just going to add what is Microsoft Forms, and then we put in a couple of options. Document. Oh, spelled that wrongly. Still spelled that wrongly. There we go. Or spreadsheet. And then basically, unlike the Google Forms, you can actually see here that I can add the correct answer there. I can also put the points value for that. So there might be 5 points. I can also display a message to the respondent if they get that wrong, which I'm not going to do. Then you have these extra functions in Microsoft Forms. If you're in maths, you can actually use maths formulas within here, which is really cool. I can actually add subtitles. So if I want to add a subtitle, answer with the best answer, then that basically gives my students a prompt, and there's branching there, but I'm not going to go into branching today. Now then I'll move on, add new, and keep on going. So let's just have a look. If I want to preview what it's going to look like at the moment, you'll see it tells me that it has Microsoft Forms and submit. We're also going to go in to the ellipsis button, which is the 3 dots, and you have the settings. So we're going to show results automatically, and this is a great thing. As they're doing it, they're actually at the end they get instant feedback. I always have it as people in the organization can respond. And one thing that's really cool down here, options for responses. So they accept responses. I can put a start date and an end date if I'm not using Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. And this is great if you want a period where you want them to do it and then come back. I can shuffle the questions. So this will shuffle all the questions, but if I want to lock a couple of questions like the first one, I can. I'm going to close that. Okay. Now, last year I went on long service leave. I went to Victoria. I had a year 10 IST class and they had an electronic exam. And what I did was I set it up in an assignment in Microsoft Teams. It opened 5 minutes after the class started with the casual, and it closed 5 minutes after the period was ended. Now, we were going to Albury that day. I arrived in Albury at about 6 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock I had the final questions actually added and finished, and feedback within 3 hours of doing the exam, which is pretty cool. Just one other thing I'll show you before we actually get into it. When it comes to short answer questions, you could actually ask a question. And it might be, what do forms do? And you just add your content. If you have your exam there, you can actually just cut and paste straight in. Now they'll enter their answer there. My tip here is don't add correct answers, because if they spell it wrongly or it's not in the same, it doesn't work. So this is a manual question that you'll go back, and I'll show you what that looks like. So that form is done. Now I'm going to show you the IST exam. This was 2018. You'll see the questions are there. Now the short answer questions are down the bottom here, and there are the responses. Now let's link this to a classroom. So I'm using Microsoft Teams, but you can actually go straight through and create this in Google Classroom too. So we're going to, I've got my test class, I'm in the general channel, I click assignments, create. I'm going to create a quiz assignment. And I'm going to choose one that I made a while ago, the year 10. So the next, it will load that quiz up. So it's actually 2020, so we'll change that. So I would then enter my questions, and I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. There's 44 points. So when you put that grade in, it automatically grades, and it also feeds straight back into the grade book. It's going to all students. Now there might be 2 different quizzes, and you can actually differentiate. Now I don't have any students in this team. What's the due date? So you choose what your due date is. So I'm going to, it was the 28th, and the time due. So I would assign that to students. Then going back into the form, what I'm going to do is go back into settings and actually set when this starts and when it ends. So even if the student goes into the assignment, they won't be able to open the quiz until it's ready. And I've put a thank you message. So let's have a look at what it looks like. So this was Year 10 IST 2019. So this is what the students get when they open it up. So this is what the quiz looks like. Now it's swapped, so each student gets something different. If you're using it for online learning, they'll be at home. But you'll see here each one can read out. Now, one of the great accessibility things through Microsoft Forms that Google Forms doesn't have is the immersive reader. So it can actually read back the question to a student who maybe has ESL or needs a little bit more help, but we'll go through that another time. So let's have a look at what that looks like on the back end. So once I've come back, I've already graded this, but I'm going to take you into the grading section, and I'm going to open up Luke. Now, if you do the quiz separately, you can actually open it up in Microsoft Forms in the responses section, and you'll get the same look. Okay, so we have a range where you can flick through students or open it up with this down arrow. You'll see here it's automatically marked and given them the auto grade, which ones are wrong, which ones are right. And you'll see here, these are the manual questions. So I think I put in about 6 or 8 manual questions, which we need to actually add something to it. Now you can actually add feedback by clicking this button here, and you'll see I've put some feedback in there for the student before we actually send that back to them. One last thing I'm going to show you before we move. One last thing I'm going to show you is how powerful this program is. As an overall class, I can get a very good idea straight away which questions were a problem for the whole class and for each individual student. So you'll see it basically gives you which ones were correct and which ones weren't. Really powerful tool. Remember, you can do most of this in Google Forms. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time at the Kalara BYOD Hub.